Greetings fellow gorehounds and welcome back to another Blood Splattered vlog. So this week we got another 2016 catch-up movie, but this time it's a movie that has a bit of a weird release thing going on with it. And by that I mean, this movie was originally released in some countries in 2015 and 14, but didn't get an official US release until 2016. So unless I wanted to bootleg it, there was no official way to see this movie in this country until last year. So as far as I'm concerned, it's a 2016 movie, but I totally understand if for you it was 2015. And the movie I'm of course talking about is the Eli Roth produced Clown. This is a movie I've been looking forward to ever since I first saw the trailer, because I really love the idea of doing a body horror movie all about turning into a clown. That's a really awesome and creepy idea. And then I took one look at the trailer, and the trailer totally looked like a cross between Thinner and Stitches, and that to me sounds like a perfect movie as far as I'm concerned, because I fucking love Thinner and I fucking love Stitches. And having finally seen the movie, that is basically what the movie is for like the first 30 minutes, but the trailer only really shows you the first 30 minutes. This movie keeps going and goes way farther than I expected, and good God did I appreciate that. But without getting into spoilers, this movie is about a father who inexplicably starts turning into a clown one day and then must figure out why he's turning into a clown and how to stop it. And as the movie goes on, the situation ends up escalating until, lives are in danger. And not just his own, but also the lives of his own family. And what ends up transpiring is equal parts like darkly humorous, really fucking horrifying in like a body horror sense, and just gross and creepy, and man, this is a really great movie. And my favorite part about it is that it's actually really character driven despite having all these really great practical horror effects. Because basically you're following this family the whole movie, not just the guy being turned into a clown, but also his wife and his kid, and you're learning a little bit about them as the movie goes on, and you're just getting really attached to them. At least I found myself really attached to them because they were both really well written and very well rounded as characters. It's once again a movie where I felt like the characters were real people and I kind of forgot I was watching a movie, which is the ultimate goal at the end of the day. Now, while I did say a second ago that this movie is filled with a lot of really great practical effects, I should mention that there are one or two kind of shoddy digital effects. You'll know when they happen, and you can tell they were done to like enhance what was practically there, but honestly I don't think they were that necessary. But it only happens once or twice, and for the most part, the movie is done, like, really amazingly when it comes to the effects. Like, you really start to believe that a guy is turning into some sort of clown monster as this movie goes on. All the acting is really good in this movie, even the kids are pretty good actors. There's nothing too special about the cinematography, however, but it definitely is serviceable for the movie. This wasn't no Neon Demon with the flashy cinematography, this was a little more down to earth. And I also want to mention that this movie is co-written and directed by Jon Watts, the guy who's doing the upcoming Spider-Man Homecoming movie. And let me just say, if he instills as much menace into the Vulture as he does the Clown in this movie, then Spider-Man Homecoming is going to be one hell of a movie. But I should issue at least one warning. If you're one of those people out there who don't like to see animals getting harmed, there is a dog who dies very brutally in this movie, so you've been forewarned. Anyway, my fellow gorehounds, I can't think of what more to say beyond going to the spoilers, so if you like yourself extreme body horror, if you like yourself clown horror movies like Stitches or It or Killer Clowns from Outer Space, if you like yourself Eli Roth's brand of dark humor and fucked up scenarios, then Clown is absolutely a movie you should all see. Oh, and by the way, this movie is currently available for 99 cents on Amazon Instant, at least that's how I ended up watching it, so if you want an easy way to check out this movie, I highly recommend that method. And no, I'm not sponsored by Amazon or anything, I just like to point out good deals when I can. And with that all said, my fellow gorehounds, let us move on to the spoilers. Okay, so basically this movie opens up on a child's birthday party, and the mom has been trying to call the clown college in order to get a clown to come, but apparently the clown, like, overbooked or something, so the clown's not gonna make it? Or maybe they canceled. I can't quite remember if it was an overbooking or a cancellation, but that's really besides the point. The point is, she ends up calling her husband, who's a realtor, and telling him that a clown's not gonna come, and he's currently, like, setting up a house to be viewed in, like, an open house kind of scenario, and he ends up finding this clown costume in the basement. So he's like, okay, honey, don't worry, I got this. So he puts on the clown costume, goes home, ends up entertaining the kids, and then ends up passing out on the couch. But not before he and his wife almost have some sexy time, but it turns out the clown costume makes it a little too weird for his wife, so her pussy kinda dries up. Don't you just hate cock-blocking clown costumes? Man, who hasn't been there? So he wakes up the next morning, and he tries to wash off the clown makeup, but for whatever reason, the wig won't come off, and the nose won't come off, and neither will the actual costume itself. And on top of that, his wife is in a hurry and basically asks him to take the kid to school. So he drives the kid to school and ends up going to work in the clown outfit. So he ends up meeting the carpenters for one of the houses he's working on, and he goes into the bathroom to try to take off the clown outfit so he can get back to work. But once again, the nose won't come off, the hair won't come off, and neither will the suit. He tries to cut the suit off him and ends up actually slicing his wrist on accident and having to bandage it up. And he almost rips his nose off trying to pull the nose off. Then he takes like a wood cutter, like one of those electronic wood cutters, those little saws, and tries to cut the suit off and ends up breaking the saw. Like the saw completely shreds as if the suit was made of some sort of like unbreakable metal. So naturally at this point, he starts freaking out. He ends up going home after work and trying to get his wife to pull the nose off, and she ends up successfully doing so, but she rips part of his nose off in the process. But because he ends up ripping off part of his nose, he ends up going to the emergency room and seeing a doctor, and the doctor is sitting there thinking that he's some sort of suicidal maniac guy. Because why the fuck else would he be wearing that costume, and why the fuck else would he have like superglued shit onto his face? Also, he seems to have sliced his wrist, so apparently a suicide attempt might have happened. But then the guy starts to realize that for whatever reason, the wig has merged with his hair. It's now just the color of his hair. There is no wig anymore. The main character says, fuck it, I'm gonna get to the bottom of where the fuck this clown suit came from and what the fuck is happening to me. So he ends up going to a bunch of costume shops and trying to look for a suit that's similar to it or where the suit might have come from. And what he ends up discovering is that there is a guy who owns a costume shop who seems to be related to the guy who previously owned the house he got the costume from. So he tracks that guy down, and that guy ends up being played by Peter Stormare, who is an awesome actor who's appeared in a lot of like Michael Bay movies. And he's usually been the best part. Like he was amazing in fucking Armageddon, one of the best parts of that movie. So he ends up meeting with Peter Stormare, who ends up drugging him and attempting to cut off his head. Because according to Peter Stormare, the costume is actually the skin of a demon. And in the mythology of this movie, there was some sort of Nordic demon that resembled a clown and ended up becoming the thing that the clown was based on in the future. But in reality, it dressed and looked that way in order to lure children into its cave and eat 5 of them for every month of winter. So basically, he's not just turning into a clown, he's turning into a child-eating demon clown. And as the movie goes on, he ends up looking more and more demon-like, and the makeup effects on that is fucking spectacular. And fucking gnarly too, like his teeth start falling out and these sharp fangs start growing. His feet start enlarging and breaking through his shoe into these giant like fucking Bigfoot feet. His fingers start elongating like these giant like clown fingers. And because he ripped off a part of his nose, he's got this exposed part of his nose that is automatically red as a result of that. His face starts getting paler and paler, he starts getting taller and taller, and just starts looking more and more like a monster. And as this is all happening, he starts to crave, he starts to thirst for the blood of children. And not just the blood, but also their flesh and their organs. So he ends up going into hiding and trying to figure out a way to either off himself or get the suit off him in another way. But every time he encounters a kid, his stomach starts gurgling and he starts to lose sight of his own mind. And in one of my favorite scenes in the movie, he ends up taking these 2 circular saws and like attaching them to these cinder blocks and creating this device so that he can land his head into it and cut his own head off. But as he's doing this, there's a kid knocking on his door trying to get inside because the kid is worried that something's happening to the guy because he saw him go in and he looks sick. But he ends up messing it up and falling out of his chair and knocking one of the circular saws off of his hinge and ends up flying and like going straight through the kid. And yeah, this is a movie in which the kids are fucking eaten, mutilated, and fucking killed. This movie is not afraid to kill children, and I fucking love that. Because I remember when that used to be taboo. Like back before movies like Feast, it was very rare you would see a kid actually be killed on screen. I mean, occasionally you would have a movie like Relic where there are kids killed, but really off-screen. So thank fuck for modern filmmakers willing to go for the actual throat in a way that old filmmakers couldn't do for one reason or another because, you know, they didn't want to get an X rating and shit.
Guru, it's no longer called X rating, it's now called NC-17.
Who the fuck cares? But anyway, so far, all I've described to you has really been, like, less than the first half of the movie. There is way more that goes on in the second half of this movie. Because after a while, the movie starts to focus on the mom trying to save her husband from whatever is afflicting him, and slowly realizing that she has to make a really awful choice between either feeding him kids or killing him. Because it turns out Peter Stormare once got freed from the outfit, and the only way his brother freed him was by feeding him kids. And this was the point of the movie that I really fucking loved, because I was not expecting it to go here. Because you have these scenes where the mom is interacting with these kids and trying to decide, should she feed them to the monster, or should she off the monster herself and save the kids? And then it gets even more complicated when he threatens eating their kid if she doesn't feed him. So yeah, there is no way in hell I'm gonna spoil what she ends up choosing in the end, because I want you to all experience that for yourself. But needless to say, this movie ratchets up to one hell of a fucking finale. It'll have action, it'll have excitement, it'll have twists and turns, it'll have heartbreak, and once again, it'll have some really fucked up humor. Like seriously, every time a kid dies in this movie, I laughed my ass off. Especially one kid in particular who totally deserved it. You'll know which one I'm talking about when it happens. You will know. Just man, I fucking love when we can get a really good body horror movie like this. We need more movies like this. We need a resurgence of the Cronenberg style of just complete body horror fuckery. Anyway, my fellow gorehounds, as per usual, like, comment, subscribe, and be sure to click that little bell thing and that notification bell to make sure that you're notified of my videos, because I don't know what the hell's happening with the subscription boxes lately, but it's been all fucked up. Peace out, my fellow gorehounds, and I'll catch y'all later.